My wife never imagined I'd actually leave her after years of disrespect, so when she went on her girls' weekend trip, I canceled all her cards and filed for divorce. Hey Reddit, my name is David, and I'm 29 years old. For the longest time, I thought I was living what most people would call the dream life. I had a good job as a marketing coordinator, a nice apartment, a decent car, and a wife who looked absolutely stunning in all our Instagram photos. From the outside, everything appeared perfect. But for weeks now, something had been eating away at me from the inside, a gnawing feeling that I couldn't quite shake. The rain started around 3:30 in the morning. It began soft at first, almost gentle, then became sudden and intense, finally crashing against our windows like it wanted to break through the glass entirely. I was already awake when it started. I had been lying there for hours, unable to sleep. The only thing keeping me company was the pale glow of my phone screen and the haunting memory of Nicole's suitcase wheels clacking across our hardwood floors the night before. That sound had been echoing in my skull like a countdown timer ever since. Nicole had told me she was going on another wellness retreat with her girlfriends. It was supposedly upstate at the same cabin they always used, the same convenient excuses she'd been giving me. This would be the fourth time in just 3 months. When she kissed me goodbye, I didn't say anything meaningful. I just stood there in our kitchen, coffee mug in hand, and nodded like the dutiful husband I thought I was supposed to be. She didn't notice the way I was really looking at her that morning, studying her face for any tells. But then again, she wasn't really looking at me at all. Here's the thing you need to understand about Nicole. She's not stupid. Arrogant, yes. Careless sometimes, absolutely. But stupid? Never. That's what made this entire situation so much more pathetic and infuriating. In her mind, I was still just the dependable, predictable husband who would never question her stories. I was the guy who woke up at 5:30 every morning, hit the gym, went to work, and responded to her increasingly dry text messages with heart emojis like clockwork. She thought she could live her little secret life completely unbothered, confident that I would never catch on. The only problem with her assumption was that I had stopped being predictable about 4 weeks ago. That's when I made the decision to put a GPS tracker in her car. She had actually laughed in my face when I bought her that new keychain for her birthday, dismissing it as a low-effort gift. What she had no clue about was that I had carefully embedded a tile tracker inside the decorative part before wrapping it. She clipped it to her purse without giving it a second thought, never suspecting that her loving husband had finally decided to stop taking her word for everything. And that's exactly how I discovered that she never even left the city during any of these supposed wellness retreats. Her car had been sitting in the parking lot of the Orlando Marriott for 2 straight nights, not in some remote mountain town practicing yoga and meditation, not at some peaceful hideaway reconnecting with nature and her girlfriends. While I was receiving her carefully crafted text messages saying things like, "Signal is so bad out here, babe. Love you," she was actually sipping cocktails just 600 meters south of where I thought she was, spending time with someone who sure as hell wasn't Madison or Brittany. But this next part, the part I'm about to tell you, was what really sealed the deal for me. It was Friday afternoon when I got an unexpected call from our credit card company. They were calling about a fraud alert. Nicole had tried to use our card at some luxury spa, but the transaction had been declined. Without hesitation, I told the representative on the phone to block the card immediately. Then I logged into our online banking account and pulled up the full transaction history from the past few months. What I found there made my blood run cold. There were charges at jewelry stores, expensive steakhouses, and even an adult boutique, every single purchase screaming affair in bold, unmistakable letters. She had been burning through our joint account like it was her personal revenge fund, treating our shared finances like her own private slush fund for funding her secret relationship. The amounts weren't small either. She was spending freely, confident that I would never question the charges or dig deeper into what they meant. So I decided to take everything back. I methodically froze all of our shared accounts and changed every single password to every service we had together. I revoked her access to my health insurance plan and even removed her name from the emergency contacts list at my job. Why did I do all of this? Because she had become a complete stranger to me. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, would never have been capable of this level of systematic deception and betrayal. She never thought I would walk away. In her mind, I was too predictable, too comfortable, too dependent on our routine to ever make such a drastic move. So when I blocked her card while she was on what she thought was just another successful weekend getaway with her affair partner, She hadn't called yet to complain or explain. I was betting that she was probably scrambling at that very moment, maybe blaming mysterious bank errors for the declined transactions, or perhaps waiting for her mystery man to step up and cover her dinner tab like some kind of knight in shining armor. But this was exactly how I wanted it to play out. Quiet, sudden, and total. I didn't rage at her. I didn't scream accusations into the phone, and I didn't send angry text messages demanding explanations. I simply vanished from her version of the story, disappeared from the narrative she had constructed, where I was the oblivious husband who would never figure things out. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction born from emotion. It was a calculated decision based on undeniable evidence. She had made her moves carefully and deliberately over months, and now I was making mine with the same level of strategic thinking. Sunday evening at exactly 7:18 p.m., the first message finally came through on my phone. It was Nicole, and her tone was casual, almost cheerful. "Hey babe, can you check the card? It's not working for some reason, super annoying, lol, miss you." I stared at the message for a long moment, then made the conscious decision not to respond. I wanted to see how this would play out, how long it would take for her casual facade to crack when reality started setting in. 12 minutes later, another message appeared on my screen. This time, her tone had shifted noticeably. "Okay, WTF, did you freeze the account? I'm trying to pay for dinner and it's declined." I remained sitting on our couch, phone in hand, staring at the text bubble that showed she was typing something else. What struck me most in that moment wasn't surprise or anger. It was how calm I felt. I was completely detached from the situation, detached in a way that almost scared me because it felt so foreign. It was like I had finally stepped outside of the dreamlike state I'd been drugged into living for years. A marriage built on paper promises and confetti-like illusions that dissolved the moment you tried to hold them. Another message came through almost immediately. "This isn't funny, David. I'm literally standing here like an idiot. Call me." But I didn't call her. I didn't even start typing a response. Instead, I opened our shared cloud storage account and began scrolling through the folder that Nicole didn't realize I still had access to. She had always synced her photos automatically by default, and in all these months of deception, she had never once thought to ask me to turn that feature off. And that's when I found exactly what I was looking for. There was a blurry selfie from her hotel balcony, taken barely 6 hours earlier. She must have snapped it to send to one of her friends, probably to show off her glamorous weekend getaway. Her hair was perfectly curled, she was holding a cocktail in one hand, and there was a beautiful sunset in the background. She was smiling in the photo, but it wasn't the same smile she gave me anymore. This smile had no warmth behind it, no genuine emotion. It was the kind of calculated smile someone gives when they know they're getting away with something they shouldn't be doing. The next photo in the sequence made my stomach drop. It showed her legs crossed elegantly as she sat perched on a lounge chair beside a man's feet. I could see expensive leather sandals and the faint shadow of a wrist tattoo that I had never seen before in my life. There were 2 wine glasses visible in the frame, and I noticed that her toenails were painted in that deep red color she used to reserve only for special occasions when she wanted to spice things up between us. As I stared at this image, I felt absolutely nothing. It was like watching a movie about someone else's wife, someone else's betrayal, someone else's life falling apart. Then my phone started ringing with an incoming FaceTime call from Nicole. I let it ring and ring until it finally stopped. 7 minutes later, her text messages took on a completely different tone, becoming ugly and accusatory. "Are you seriously ignoring me? Grow up. If you're going to act like a child, maybe I should have stayed longer. You know what, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe we both need space." And then came the message that actually made me laugh out loud. "Don't you dare touch my stuff." Touch her stuff? She had absolutely no idea that I'd already packed every single thing she owned. Everything that belonged to her was now sitting in 4 large suitcases by our front door, along with 1 trash bag filled with old receipts, expired makeup, and every single love note she had ever written me. Notes that I no longer believed contained a single word of truth. She was now completely gone from our joint finances, removed from my insurance policy, and erased from my emergency contacts at work. Next, she would be gone from our lease agreement entirely. But before I could move forward with that final step, I needed one crucial thing that had been eating at me. Concrete proof of what I already suspected. And more importantly, proof of who she was doing this with. So I made the decision to call Tyler, who happened to be Nicole's cousin. We had never been particularly close, but he owed me a significant favor from a few years back. More importantly, I knew that Tyler absolutely despised the guy Nicole was secretly seeing. Yeah, I already knew who it was. I had pieced together enough clues over the past few weeks, but I needed confirmation, and Tyler was the one person who could give me the full story without any sugarcoating or family loyalty getting in the way. Tyler didn't ask a single question when I called him that evening. He simply said, "You finally ready to hear it?" Like he had been holding his breath for months, waiting for me to come to my senses and ask the right questions. I told him I wasn't interested in gossip or speculation. I wanted facts, clean and precise, with no dramatic embellishments or secondhand rumors. He understood exactly what I needed and proceeded to give me everything. It turned out that the man Nicole had been seeing wasn't some random stranger she had met at a coffee shop or gym. It wasn't some mysterious coworker from a different department, or her yoga instructor, or even some old high school boyfriend who had resurfaced on social media. No, it was Ryan Whitman, our old friend, the guy I had personally introduced her to years ago, the same guy who used to crash on our couch during his rough financial patches. This was the man I had once loaned $6,000 to when his startup company folded and he was facing eviction. Yeah, that Ryan, the one who sent me birthday texts and called me brother when he was drunk. According to Tyler, this affair had been going on for nearly a full year. He told me that it all started back in February when Nicole began confiding in Ryan during what she described as a rough time in our marriage. This was news to me since I had actually thought things were finally stabilizing between us after what I remembered as a somewhat rocky winter period. But Nicole, apparently, had been rewriting our entire relationship history in her conversations with Ryan. She had been building herself up as the victim of a loveless, cold marriage, portraying me as an unromantic and boring husband who didn't appreciate or understand her. She was letting another man into her bed, figuratively at first, then literally, while crafting this elaborate narrative about how misunderstood and neglected she was. The most infuriating part was that Ryan had actually been boasting about the affair to other people. Not in front of me, of course. He was smart enough to keep up his friendly facade when I was around. But Tyler had overheard him bragging about it at a party just last month, saying things like, "Nicole says she's just waiting for the right moment to leave David," and "I give it another few weeks before she pulls the trigger." She was apparently waiting for the right moment to destroy our marriage, like I was some inconvenient business meeting she kept rescheduling until her calendar cleared up. My jaw clenched so tightly when Tyler told me this that I thought I might actually break a molar. But it wasn't from heartbreak. That emotion had died somewhere around the time I found the second steakhouse receipt charged to our account. This was pure, burning anger at the sheer level of smug, cowardly betrayal I was dealing with. She had been building her escape route and backup plan while still kissing me goodnight every evening, wearing a mask of loving devotion, while whispering poison about me behind my back to the man she was planning to replace me with. And here's the part that burned the deepest. Ryan had actually texted me just 3 weeks ago, saying we should catch up soon, and that he missed our long conversations about life and work. I remember thinking to myself, damn, I should probably make time for that guy since we've been out of touch. Meanwhile, he was sleeping with my wife and probably laughing about how clueless I was, all while sending me those friendly messages with heart emojis attached. So I asked Tyler for one more thing. I needed concrete confirmation, a photograph, anything tangible that I could keep as undeniable evidence of what had been happening behind my back. Tyler paused for a moment on the other end of the line, then said quietly, "I already have it." Without any further explanation, he sent me a picture that had been taken at a rooftop bar in Orlando just 2 nights earlier. There they were, Nicole and Ryan, looking completely comfortable and natural together. Her head was resting on his shoulder in an intimate way that made my stomach turn, and his hand was casually placed on her thigh like they had been together for years. She was wearing the same dress she had told me she decided not to buy after all from Nordstrom. Apparently, that had been yet another lie in an endless string of deceptions. In the photo, they looked genuinely happy and carefree, like the kind of couple who believed the world couldn't touch them and that their actions had no real consequences. I stared at that photograph for a very long time, not because I missed her, and certainly not because I wanted her back in my life. I studied it because it proved something I desperately needed to feel in that moment. Absolutely nothing at all. Looking at that image, I felt no jealousy, no heartbreak, no desperate urge to fight for my marriage. I felt empty in the most liberating way possible, like a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had finally been lifted from my shoulders. And that's when I knew, with complete certainty, that I wasn't going to confront her over the phone when she returned. No, That approach would be far too easy and far too kind for someone who had spent nearly a year systematically destroying our marriage while pretending to be the loving wife. She was scheduled to fly home the following morning, and I would definitely be waiting for her. But I wouldn't be standing there with a suitcase in hand or tears in my eyes, ready to have some dramatic confrontation. Instead, I would be waiting with something much more powerful. A locked door that her key could no longer open, an empty house that no longer felt like home to her, and a printed copy of that rooftop bar photograph placed prominently on our kitchen table where she couldn't possibly miss it. Monday morning at 10:27 a.m., everything was set in motion. She was supposed to arrive at 9:30, but I knew her flight had been delayed because I had checked the airline's website, not because I missed her or was eagerly awaiting her return, but because I wanted to time everything perfectly for maximum impact. I had left our apartment early that morning, taking my time and even stopping to get coffee at my favorite place downtown. Then I picked up a manila envelope from the print shop 3 blocks away, where I had sent Tyler's photograph to be professionally printed. I requested an 8x10 matte finish. I wanted this to look official and permanent, not like some casual snapshot. I carefully slid the photograph inside the envelope along with a note I had written in black Sharpie. The message was simple and devastating. Just 6 words that said everything that needed to be said. This is what you chose instead. That envelope sat dead center on our kitchen table, which I had deliberately cleared of everything else. There was no fruit bowl, no decorative placemats, no cozy scented candle that she loved so much. Just the photograph, the note, and her lies displayed neatly for her to confront when she walked through the door. I took one final look around our apartment before walking out for what I knew would be the last time. The refrigerator was completely empty, and I had unplugged the Wi-Fi router, petty gestures perhaps, but somehow poetic in their finality. All the drawers were pulled open with half of her belongings missing, and her closets were hollowed out like crime scenes. I was leaving her with exactly what she had earned through her choices: silence, emptiness, and the consequences of her own actions. Then I locked the door behind me and changed the electronic entry code to something completely new. Her key wouldn't work anymore, and neither would the 4-digit combination she had memorized. By the time her Uber pulled into our apartment complex, I was positioned about a block away where I could observe everything without being seen. I wasn't hiding like some stalker. I was simply waiting to witness the moment when her carefully constructed world of lies finally collapsed around her. She dragged her suitcase behind her with that same annoying, self-satisfied smugness she always displayed after returning from her supposed girls' trips. Her hair was perfectly curled, she was wearing new sunglasses that I didn't recognize, and she carried a designer tote bag that was definitely not in her wardrobe when she left. She walked with the confident stride of someone who believed the world owed her a parade for simply existing. When she reached our front door, she punched in the old entry code. Nothing happened. I watched her try again, her fingers moving more deliberately this time, but the lock remained stubbornly closed. Then came the inevitable knock on the door, firm and authoritative at first, then increasingly frantic as the reality of the situation began to dawn on her. I sat in my car, waiting for the phone call that I knew was coming. Sure enough, my phone rang. "David, open the door. What the hell are you doing?" I declined the call without hesitation. Seconds later, a text message appeared on my screen. "This isn't funny, David. I'm tired. I'm not in the mood for your games." Games. That's what she called this situation. After months of elaborate deception and betrayal, she had the audacity to accuse me of playing games. I took a slow, deep breath and sent her exactly one message in response. "Check the table." I could see her pause from my vantage point across the parking lot, and I noticed a flicker of hesitation in her body language, a subtle change in her posture that suggested she was beginning to understand that something was seriously wrong. Then, just as I had anticipated, she walked around to the back of the building to retrieve the spare key we kept hidden under the outdoor grill. She opened the back door and disappeared inside the apartment. For a full minute, there was complete silence. I could only imagine what was going through her mind as she walked through our home and saw the stripped-down space that used to be our shared sanctuary, eventually making her way to the kitchen table where the photograph and my note were waiting for her. Then, my phone buzzed with a much longer, more panicked text message. "David, what is this you went through my stuff? That's a serious violation. You can't just throw me out. Be a man and talk to me." That final phrase, "be a man," was what broke whatever remaining restraint I had been holding on to. As if I hadn't been being a man this entire time by paying our bills, forgiving her countless small lies and inconsistencies, and sleeping next to a traitor who wore fake apologies like expensive perfume. She called again immediately after sending that text, but I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then I made the decision that would define this entire situation. I turned off my phone completely. I didn't need to hear whatever excuses she was preparing to unleash on me. I had already played that entire conversation in my head at least 100 times over the past few weeks. There would be crocodile tears and vehement denials, followed by the classic "it didn't mean anything" speech that cheaters always resort to when they're caught. Or worse yet, she would try to twist the entire situation around and somehow make it all my fault, pointing to my supposed shortcomings as a husband to justify her betrayal. But none of that mattered anymore because I wasn't going to give her the opportunity to manipulate me with her words. Let her scream into an empty apartment until her voice gave out. Let her curse the man who had finally stopped allowing her to win every argument through emotional manipulation. Let her call Ryan and dramatically announce that she was suddenly free to be with him. Because the truth was that she absolutely was free now. Free of me, free of our marriage, and free of any safety net I had ever provided. And I, for the first time in what felt like years, was finally free of her and all the toxic energy she had brought into my life. By the time I arrived at my brother's place that evening, my phone had accumulated 19 missed calls and 26 text messages from Nicole. When I finally turned it back on and scrolled through her digital meltdown, I realized something important. She wasn't sad about our marriage ending, and she certainly wasn't heartbroken about losing me. She was absolutely furious, and her anger stemmed from one simple fact. For the first time in our entire relationship, she wasn't in control of the narrative. Her messages bounced back and forth between pure rage and calculated manipulation, like someone frantically slamming their fists on two different panic buttons, hoping that one of them would finally get the reaction she was looking for. The progression was almost textbook in its predictability. "You're seriously insane. I can't believe you would do this to me. You could have just talked to me like an adult. I was going to tell you everything soon. Ryan means nothing. It was just a mistake. You're ruining our marriage over one dumb thing. You think you're some hero now? You've always been insecure, David, always." Each word she sent felt like another shovelful of dirt as she dug herself deeper into the version of herself she had been hiding from me for years. And in every single message, not once, not even a single time, did she ask if I was okay or whether I needed anything from her. Not once did she show even the faintest trace of genuine remorse for what she had done to our marriage. It was all blame, projection, and deflection. She wasn't sorry for cheating on me. She was sorry that I had found out about it and ruined her carefully laid plans. And then came the absolute cherry on top of this disaster. A voice memo that lasted 47 seconds of pure, concentrated venom. I'll never forget the tone of her voice as she said, "I don't know what your plan is here, David, but you're blowing up our life over what, a fling? Everyone goes through rough patches. You think you're some noble victim, get over yourself. I didn't deserve this kind of ambush. You want to play games, fine, but don't come crawling back when reality hits you, because you're not exactly surprised either." She actually said that final part. "You're not exactly surprised either." Those words should have cut deep and devastated me. A few months ago, they probably would have broken whatever remaining confidence I had in myself and our relationship. But as I stared at my phone screen in my brother's guest room, I felt my mouth slowly curling into something that was halfway between a genuine smile and a bitter grimace. This woman had systematically built an entire second life behind my back, lied to me with the ease and confidence of a professional con artist, and spent our hard-earned money on hotel beds and champagne for another man. And now, she had the sheer audacity to act like I was the one who had betrayed her trust and destroyed our marriage. I saved that voice memo to my phone, downloaded it to my laptop, and carefully labeled it in my files. Not because I was planning some elaborate revenge scheme, and not because I thought I might need it for court proceedings, but simply for myself. I wanted to preserve it so that if I ever felt even a moment of doubt about my decision, I could hit play and remember exactly what she thought of me once her mask had finally fallen off. That night, lying in my brother's spare bedroom, I found myself unable to sleep. But it wasn't from sadness, and it wasn't from anger. It was from something much stranger and more unexpected, an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't lying awake wondering where she really was, who she was really texting, or whether she was coming home with love in her heart or guilt tucked carefully behind her eyes. I wasn't trying to fix something that she had already burned to ashes without telling me. I stared at the ceiling, flat on my back, and let the silence stretch out around me like clean, empty space waiting to be filled with something better. And that's when it hit me with startling clarity. I wasn't grieving the loss of her. I was detoxing from her presence in my life, slowly purging years of accumulated doubt and emotional manipulation from my system. And tomorrow, I would file for divorce. No more discussions, no more lengthy speeches about working things out, no more pretending that what we had was actually a marriage worth saving. She had made her bed with another man, and now she could sleep in it permanently. Wednesday morning found me standing outside the courthouse before they had even unlocked the doors for the day. I didn't want to give myself time to think about what I was doing or second-guess my decision. What I wanted was action, paperwork, signatures, official stamps, and concrete dates. I needed something tangible and legally binding that I could point to and say with absolute certainty, this is where it ends. The actual process of filing for divorce turned out to be surprisingly straightforward. It felt cold and antiseptic, perhaps, but the woman behind the bulletproof glass window didn't even flinch when I handed over my completed forms. She simply stapled them together in a neat stack like she had witnessed this exact same story playing out 1,000 times before in her career. Maybe she had. And maybe that's exactly what made the process feel so surreal and impersonal. I filled in each box on the legal documents like a robot operating on autopilot. Reason for filing, infidelity, spouse's current address, same as mine for now, though that would obviously be changing soon. Do you anticipate a contested divorce? I checked the yes box without any hesitation. Not out of hope that we might somehow work things out, but out of hard-earned experience with Nicole's personality. I knew beyond any doubt that she wouldn't go quietly into the night like some heartbroken romantic heroine. She wouldn't show up at my door weeping in the rain with mascara running down her face, begging for a second chance to make our marriage work. No, Nicole would fight this divorce with everything she had. Not because she wanted me back, or because she had suddenly realized what she was losing, but because she needed to maintain control over the situation and the narrative. And right on cue, she started her counterattack the very moment the automated email from the court system hit her inbox, officially confirming that divorce proceedings had been initiated. My phone lit up like a house fire with her immediate response to this legal development. Wow, coward move didn't even have the balls to talk face to face. After everything I did for you? You really want to ruin both of our lives just because you got your little feelings hurt. This was her new strategy now, completely rewriting our shared history so that she could position herself as the wronged party in this situation. She wanted to be able to look at herself in the mirror every morning and say with conviction, "He abandoned me when I needed him most." That's exactly what people like Nicole do when they're caught in their lies. They don't just cheat on you and betray your trust. They gaslight you into questioning your own reality until you start wondering if you somehow overreacted to their betrayal. But I wasn't interested in playing her psychological games anymore. I had moved far beyond that stage of our relationship. So I sent exactly one message in response, my only communication with her that entire week. You chose someone else, I'm just giving you what you wanted. The silence that followed lasted for hours. No immediate angry response, no defensive explanations, nothing at all. Then, in the middle of the night, I woke up to my phone vibrating insistently on the nightstand beside my bed. It was a voicemail notification from Nicole. She was crying in the recording, or at least attempting to cry, but even her sobs sounded rehearsed and performative to my ears. She rambled on and on about how this wasn't how things were supposed to go, that Ryan didn't actually mean anything significant to her, that we had serious problems in our marriage long before her affair began, and that maybe she had made a terrible mistake. But everyone deserves forgiveness and a second chance. I lay there in the darkness of my brother's guest room, listening to her entire monologue play out, and then I deleted the voicemail without saving it. She wanted to play both sides of this situation, to be the rebellious wife who pursued excitement and passion outside of our marriage, while simultaneously being the victim who deserved sympathy and understanding. She wanted to keep her thrills and maintain her safety net at the same time. She never expected me to cut the cord so decisively and without any ceremony or dramatic confrontation. But that's the fundamental thing about people who lie for sport and manipulate others as a hobby. They think everyone else is too weak, too dependent, or too emotionally attached to actually walk away from them when push comes to shove. In Nicole's case, she was completely and utterly wrong about my breaking point. By Saturday, Nicole had officially moved out of our apartment. Well, to be more accurate, she had stormed out in a blaze of fury and dramatic gestures. She came barreling through the door like a hurricane, screaming at the top of her lungs and slamming drawers with enough force to rattle the entire building. She was demanding to know what exactly I had told other people about our situation, as if her reputation was somehow my responsibility to protect after everything she had done. I remained standing in the hallway with my arms crossed, maintaining a calm and detached demeanor, while she yanked shoes off the rack and hurled them into a large duffel bag like they had personally betrayed her. It was almost surreal to watch her treating inanimate objects as if they were somehow complicit in her downfall. I didn't speak a single word during her entire tirade. Not until she finally paused in her frantic packing, her eyes wild with rage, but her makeup still absolutely flawless, like she had just walked off a fashion runway instead of out of a failed marriage. "Say something!" she snapped at me with venom in her voice. "You can't just stand there like a zombie while I'm trying to have a conversation with you." "You're done here," I said quietly, my voice steady and final. "Get your stuff and go." She physically flinched at my words, just slightly, as if I had slapped her across the face. And then she let out that cruel, tight little laugh that I used to mistake for charm and wit during the early days of our relationship. "You're going to die alone," she muttered under her breath as she continued stuffing her belongings into bags. I shrugged my shoulders without any emotion. Better than dying a little every day next to you. She left our apartment without saying another word after that exchange, and that turned out to be the very last time I ever saw her face in person. It's a strange and unexpected thing, how quiet life becomes when all the chaos and drama finally leaves your space. The first morning after she moved out permanently, I woke up naturally expecting to hear the familiar sounds of her morning routine. I was anticipating the electric hum of her curling iron heating up in the bathroom, that obnoxious podcast voice she always played during her elaborate skincare routine, the sharp clicking sound of her high heels against our hardwood floors, and the occasional passive-aggressive throat clearing she would do when she thought I was taking too long in the kitchen preparing my coffee. But there was absolutely nothing. Just clean sunlight bleeding through the window blinds, and the peaceful smell of coffee that I had brewed entirely for myself. And for the first time in what felt like years, I took a deep breath without feeling like there was a crushing weight pressing down on my chest. I started noticing small things that I had somehow stopped paying attention to during the final months of our marriage. The way the air in our apartment felt fresher and lighter. The way the refrigerator finally stayed clean and organized because I wasn't constantly finding her half-finished meals and expired leftovers shoved into random corners. The way I didn't automatically flinch every single time my phone buzzed with a notification, no longer wondering what lie or manipulation might be waiting for me in my messages. Even my physical posture changed dramatically. I wasn't unconsciously curled forward anymore, like I was constantly bracing myself for the next emotional impact or confrontation. I stood up straighter, walked with lighter steps, and generally moved through the world like someone who had been carrying a heavy backpack for miles and had finally been given permission to set it down. It felt like slowly waking up from anesthesia and realizing that I had been emotionally numb for a very long time. Nicole, on the other hand, didn't fade quietly into the background like some remorseful ghost. She didn't simply disappear and allow both of us to move on with our lives in peace. Instead, she launched into what I can only describe as the next phase of her master plan: comprehensive reputation damage control. I started hearing from various people in our social circle, some close friends, some mere acquaintances, some people I barely knew at all, dropping not-so-subtle hints that Nicole was really struggling with our separation. They told me she felt completely blindsided by my decision to file for divorce, and that maybe I could have handled the entire situation more diplomatically and with greater sensitivity to her feelings. Handled it differently. Think about that for a moment. She had cheated on me repeatedly over the course of nearly a year. She had lied directly to my face for months without any apparent guilt or hesitation. She had taken our shared money, our precious time together, and our mutual trust, and gambled it all away for hotel champagne and romantic dinners with a man who had a wrist tattoo he probably got in college after drinking too many shots of tequila. And somehow, I was supposed to feel guilty about the way I had responded to her systematic betrayal of our marriage vows. That was Nicole's greatest and most insidious power, the talent she had always possessed and wielded with surgical precision. She could take a knife, twist it deep into your ribs with calculated cruelty, and then immediately start crying because her hand hurt from gripping the handle too tightly. She was a master at making herself the victim in every single situation, no matter how clearly she was the one who had caused all the damage in the first place. I made the conscious decision to say nothing to these well-meaning friends and acquaintances. I didn't defend my actions, and I didn't try to explain my side of the story to anyone who asked. I let them gossip and speculate to their heart's content, because I had realized something even more powerful than seeking revenge or trying to clear my name. I didn't need to defend myself to anyone. I didn't owe a single person an explanation for removing poison from my life and choosing to prioritize my own mental health and well-being. The truth has its own weight and substance. It settles into place eventually, regardless of what stories people tell or what narratives they try to construct. And while Nicole was out there spinning her carefully crafted version of events, painting herself as the misunderstood wife who had been cruelly abandoned by her heartless husband, I was doing something entirely new and liberating, rebuilding my life from the ground up. I called my lawyer and established clear, non-negotiable boundaries for all future interactions with Nicole. I locked down every aspect of our shared life that could possibly be used as a weapon against me. Every joint account we had ever opened was officially closed. Every key she had ever possessed to any space I occupied was changed or replaced. Every document login, every password, every piece of digital access was completely updated with new information that she would never be able to guess. Then I went through every single drawer in our apartment with the methodical thoroughness of a crime scene investigator. I threw away anything and everything that carried her scent, reminded me of her presence, or bore her distinctive handwriting. The fake anniversary letters that I now realized were probably written out of guilt rather than love. The "we'll get through this together" greeting cards that felt hollow and meaningless in retrospect. The souvenirs from trips that I now understood were bookended by betrayal and deception. I tossed all of it into a large black trash bag without experiencing even a moment of nostalgic hesitation, and I felt genuinely satisfied when I dragged that bag to the curb on garbage collection day. Then came what felt like the most important step in my recovery process. I walked into the spare room that we had always called the office, but had never actually used for any productive purpose. I flipped on the overhead light and really looked at the space for the first time in months. Technically, it had always been Nicole's domain, filled to the brim with her cardboard boxes, her old college textbooks that she never opened, and her ridiculous vision boards covered in glitter and magazine clippings about boss babe energy and manifesting abundance and other meaningless inspirational phrases. I smiled to myself and rolled up my sleeves. It took me 5 solid hours of work, but when I was finally finished, that room was completely and utterly mine. I positioned a sturdy desk in the corner where the morning light would hit it perfectly. I lined the walls with shelves and filled them with actual books that I intended to read and reference. I added a comfortable leather chair, a reading lamp that provided the right kind of illumination, and most importantly, I created an atmosphere of genuine silence and peace. That room, like every other space in our apartment, had been functioning as a graveyard for the person I used to be before Nicole slowly chipped away at my confidence and independence. But now it belonged to me again, and it represented something much larger than just a change in interior decorating. Everything was mine again. My time, my mental energy, my emotional peace, my physical space, and my right to make decisions without having to consider someone else's hidden agenda. And that's when the most important realization of this entire experience finally hit me with crystal clarity. Nicole hadn't just lost a husband when she chose to betray our marriage. She had lost the only man who had ever stayed by her side when she didn't deserve it, who had forgiven her smaller lies and inconsistencies, who had continued to love her even when she made it increasingly difficult to do so. And I, after years of slowly losing myself in the quicksand of her manipulation and emotional abuse, was finally done staying in a place where I wasn't wanted or valued. 3 weeks passed in relative peace and quiet. No more text messages, no phone calls, absolutely nothing from Nicole. At first, I assumed that she had finally backed off and decided to slither into whatever version of reality she needed to create for herself in order to sleep at night. She was probably nesting comfortably into Ryan's life with that same twisted, self-satisfied smile she used to flash at me whenever she wanted forgiveness without actually saying she was sorry for whatever she had done wrong. But silence from someone like Nicole, someone who thrived on drama and needed to control every narrative, was never genuine or permanent. It was just the deceptive calm in the eye of the storm, a temporary pause before the next wave of manipulation came crashing down. And sure enough, the next crack in her facade came not directly through her, but through someone else entirely. Madison, one of her loyal girlfriends from the group she always went on those fake wellness retreats with. These were the same women who had smiled warmly at me across dinner tables for years, while knowing full well that my wife was screwing someone else behind my back. Madison slid into my Instagram DMs of all places, approaching me with the casual tone of someone reaching out to an old friend. "Hey, I heard everything. I just want to say I'm really sorry about how things went down. Nicole is a mess right now if you ever want to talk I'm around." I read that message 4 separate times, letting each word sink in and considering how I wanted to respond. I almost typed out a polite reply, almost engaged with what seemed like a genuine offer of support. Almost. But then I stopped myself, because I realized that I didn't need an apology from one of Nicole's enablers, especially not when they had all played active roles in covering for her throughout her affair. These women weren't really her friends in any meaningful sense. They were her alibi factory, her support system for maintaining the elaborate lie that I had been living inside of for months. They had helped design and construct the false reality that I had been trapped in. And now that the entire house of cards had collapsed around everyone involved, they were crawling out of the wreckage like curious spectators at a train accident. I had hosted dinner parties for these people, poured them expensive wine, laughed at their jokes, and treated them like extended family. Meanwhile, they had all watched me play the fool in my own house, and not one of them had ever given me so much as a hint that something was seriously wrong. I left Madison's message sitting unread in my inbox, but it got me thinking about something that had been nagging at the back of my mind for weeks. Exactly how many people in our social circle had known about Nicole's affair and chosen to say nothing? How many of our mutual friends had seen what she was doing and decided to stay out of it because they didn't want to get involved in the drama or take sides in what they probably viewed as someone else's marital problems? The next day, I received a phone call from an unknown number that I didn't recognize. I let it go straight to voicemail and listened to the message later that evening. It was Ryan, and he sounded genuinely nervous, like someone who thought he was somehow the victim in this situation now that everything had come to light. "David, listen, I don't want any bad blood, man. Things just got complicated between me and Nicole, and look, I didn't plan for it to happen this way. I hope we can move on like adults. If you ever want to talk this out, I'm open to that. Talk it out." I nearly dropped my phone laughing at the sheer audacity of that suggestion. This man had systematically destroyed my marriage, lied directly to my face for months while pretending to be my friend, and taken advantage of my generosity and trust in ways that still made my blood boil when I thought about them. And now he wanted some kind of peace treaty, a clean slate, like we were rival business partners who had simply had a professional disagreement that could be resolved through rational negotiation. What exactly did he think we were going to discuss? Was he planning to apologize for sleeping with my wife? Or was he going to try to explain how their relationship had just happened naturally and wasn't really anyone's fault? Did he want to reminisce about all the times I had helped him through his financial difficulties? Or perhaps talk about how he had repaid my kindness by stabbing me in the back at the first opportunity? I didn't respond to his message. I simply deleted the voicemail and blocked his number from my phone. That night, I opened a bottle of expensive whiskey that I had been saving for something big and meaningful. Originally, I had thought it would be for celebrating a major promotion at work, or maybe for toasting a special anniversary trip that Nicole and I had been planning, but never actually took. But it turned out that this moment, this exact moment of clarity and freedom, was the milestone that truly mattered in my life. I sat on my apartment balcony with my glass, no music playing in the background, no television providing distraction. Just the gentle hum of city traffic below, and the profound knowledge that both Nicole and Ryan were out there somewhere, probably trying to rewrite history and make themselves feel better about the choices they had made. Let them spin whatever stories they needed to tell themselves, because while they were busy constructing elaborate justifications for their behavior, I was building something real and substantial with my life. Not with another person, not yet, but with myself, which was exactly where I needed to start. I had started sleeping better than I had in months, finally getting the kind of deep, restorative rest that had eluded me during the final phase of my marriage. I was eating better too, actually taking the time to prepare real meals for myself instead of grabbing whatever was convenient or settling for whatever Nicole felt like ordering for dinner. Hell, I had even started running again. Something I had given up years ago because Nicole didn't vibe with my exercise routine and always found ways to make me feel guilty about the time I spent at the gym or on the running trails. I reconnected with old friends that I hadn't seen or spoken to in years. People who had gradually drifted out of my life because Nicole didn't enjoy their company or didn't think they were sophisticated enough for her elevated social standards. I cleaned out my old guitar from the back of the closet, the one I had stopped playing shortly after we got married, and spent evenings strumming until my fingers remembered how to form the calluses that come with regular practice. Nicole had thought she was destroying something precious and irreplaceable when she chose to betray our marriage. But the truth was, all she had really done was remove the heavy weight that had been keeping me anchored and grounded in her toxic version of reality. In her absence, I wasn't drowning or falling apart like she probably expected. Instead, I was rising slowly, steadily, and completely without her influence or interference. I didn't expect to see her again. Not in person, anyway. I had assumed that our final confrontation outside the apartment had been exactly that, the last time our paths would cross in any meaningful way. But life has a funny way of throwing one final card on the table just when you think the game is completely over and you're ready to walk away from the casino. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I had just finished a particularly long and productive meeting with some potential new clients. I was walking back from lunch, feeling good about the direction my career was heading, when I saw her standing outside my office building. Nicole was just standing there on the sidewalk like she was waiting for a taxi that was never going to come, looking completely out of place in the business district. She was wearing a blazer that looked too clean and formal for the humid weather we'd been having, and her hair was pulled back in a style that suggested she was trying to look put together and professional. But I knew all of Nicole's tells after years of marriage, and I could see the signs of her nervousness from 50 feet away. Her right foot kept tapping against the concrete in that rapid, unconscious rhythm she always developed when she was anxious about something. Her eyes were scanning every person who walked by, like she didn't quite know who she was looking for or what she was going to say when she found them. Then she saw me approaching, and her mouth twitched into something that was caught somewhere between a confident smirk and an involuntary flinch. "David," she said, using the tone of voice she typically reserved for casual encounters with acquaintances. I didn't answer her greeting. I didn't smile, I didn't wave, and I didn't slow down my pace as I continued walking toward the building entrance. She stepped forward quickly, like she was afraid I might simply walk past her and disappear into the crowd. "I just wanted to talk," she said, her voice carrying a note of urgency that she was trying to disguise as casual conversation. I said absolutely nothing in response, just looked at her with the kind of neutral expression you might give to a stranger who had approached you on the street asking for directions. "This is ridiculous," she said quickly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear with a gesture that I recognized as one of her nervous habits. She was acting like we were characters in some romantic sitcom where things had gotten a little messy and complicated, but the audience was still rooting for the couple to patch things up and find their way back to each other. "You blocked me. You froze me out completely. You left me with nothing. No closure, no explanation, no opportunity to discuss what happened between us." I stared at her for a long moment, taking in her carefully constructed appearance and her rehearsed speech. "You want closure?" I asked finally. "I deserve it!" she snapped back, the words coming out too fast and with too much defensiveness, revealing the anger that was simmering just beneath her composed exterior. "You don't deserve anything." I cut her off before she could continue with whatever prepared speech she had rehearsed for this moment. Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see her carefully constructed mask crack for just half a second, revealing the shock underneath at hearing me speak to her with such finality. "You lied to me for months. You used me like I was some kind of convenient ATM, and you made me feel like I was going completely crazy for questioning things that my instincts were telling me were wrong. And when I finally stopped playing dumb and confronted the evidence, you acted like I was the one who had betrayed you and destroyed our marriage. Now you want to have a conversation? For what exactly? To clear your conscience, or so you can tell people that you tried to make things right." She opened her mouth to interrupt me, but I wasn't finished saying what I needed to say. "I know about Ryan, and I know exactly how long this affair has been going on. I know what you said about me to him and to other people. So if you came here today thinking that I'm going to let you cry on my shoulder while you rewrite what happened into some sad little "we just grew apart" fairy tale, you picked the wrong ending for this story." Her jaw clenched tightly, and I could see her struggling to maintain her composure. "It wasn't like that," she said weakly. but her voice lacked any real conviction. "Then tell me how it was," I said, my voice steady and calm. "Tell me how it wasn't a calculated betrayal of everything we promised each other. Tell me how it wasn't a series of deliberate choices that you made over and over again for months. Tell me how every hotel charge on our credit card, every staged photo with him, every lie you told me wasn't a conscious decision that you made." Silence. That was the real Nicole now, stripped of all her clever words and manipulative tactics. She stood there with no response, just her eyes desperately trying to find some kind of foothold in a conversation where her usual tricks weren't working anymore. She blinked several times, looked down at the sidewalk, and swallowed hard before finally speaking. "I wasn't happy," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to fix what was wrong between us. And instead of trying to fix it, you decided to wreck it completely," I replied without missing a beat. She didn't argue with that assessment, couldn't argue with it because we both knew it was true. "I'm not here to scream at you or cause a scene," I said, my voice softer now, but still maintaining that sense of finality that had been building throughout our conversation. "I'm here to tell you that I'm not carrying this weight with me anymore. You are. Whatever story you decide to tell other people about what happened between us, that's entirely your business and your burden to bear. But I know exactly what happened, and I'm completely done with all of it." She stood there for a long moment, completely still, processing what I had just said to her. Then she nodded once, a small, almost imperceptible movement of her head. "Okay," she said quietly. That's all she managed to say in response. Not tears, not a dramatic monologue about how sorry she was, not some last-ditch attempt to win me back. Just okay. She turned around and walked away from me without another word, and that was it. There were no fireworks in the sky, no emotional breakdown on either side, no kiss in the rain like you might see in a romantic movie. Just an ending that felt completely real and authentic in its coldness, flatness, and unfinished quality. It was the kind of ending that felt right precisely because it didn't tie everything up in a neat little bow. I didn't look back as she disappeared into the crowd of people on the busy sidewalk, because for the first time since this entire nightmare had started, there was absolutely nothing left to see or understand. I had said what I needed to say. She had heard what she needed to hear. And now we could both move forward with our lives without any lingering questions or unfinished business between us. It's been 5 months since that day outside my office building. 5 months since I saw Nicole's face for the last time. 5 months since I walked away from that conversation without feeling any need to look over my shoulder or wonder what might have been different. Not even for closure, because the truth is, and I say this with zero drama or emotional manipulation, I had gotten all the closure I needed the day she chose someone else over our marriage. People always ask me, "How are you doing now?" with that concerned tone in their voice, like they're expecting some kind of dramatic breakdown or emotional collapse, like I should be drowning in regret or spinning endlessly in circles of bitterness and resentment. But the truth, which might surprise some people, is that I'm lighter now. Not healed completely. I'm not going to pretend that recovery from a betrayal like this is some kind of straight line to happiness. Healing isn't some finish line that you sprint toward and cross with your arms raised in victory. It's slow, it's quiet, and it creeps into your life through clean spaces and steady, predictable days. I sleep through the entire night now without waking up in a cold sweat or staring at the ceiling for hours. My mind doesn't chase shadows anymore, doesn't spend energy trying to decode hidden meanings in text messages or analyzing tone of voice for signs of deception. I wake up in the morning and my first thought isn't, "Where is she? Who is she texting? What lie am I unconsciously swallowing today?" Instead, I wake up and think about what I want to accomplish, what I'm looking forward to, and how I want to spend my time. I started doing things that I had completely forgotten I loved during the years when my energy was consumed by the emotional gymnastics required to keep Nicole happy and satisfied. I cook real meals now, taking the time to plan menus and shop for quality ingredients instead of just grabbing whatever was convenient. I read books without distraction, actually finishing novels and biographies that I start instead of abandoning them halfway through because some crisis or drama demanded my attention. I call my friends on random Thursday evenings just because I missed the sound of their voices and wanted to catch up on their lives. I even started keeping a journal, not out of heartbreak or some desperate need to process my emotions, but out of a newfound clarity about who I am and what I want from life. For the first time in years, I feel like I can fill a page with my own authentic voice, not one that has been diluted and filtered through the exhausting mental gymnastics it took to maintain peace in my marriage. I've been out on a few dates recently. Nothing serious or complicated, just honest conversations with interesting people who don't play games or wear masks. And for the first time in a very long time, I'm not afraid to be alone during the in-between periods. Being alone is absolutely nothing compared to being with someone who slowly and systematically convinces you that you're not enough, that you're not interesting enough, not romantic enough, not successful enough to deserve their love and attention. That was the real betrayal that Nicole inflicted on me, and it went far deeper than just the cheating and the lies. It was the slow, methodical erosion of my sense of self-worth. It was the way she chipped away at my confidence with every sarcastic comment, every dismissive eye roll, every moment when she withheld affection like it was a paycheck that I hadn't quite earned yet through my behavior. I gave everything I had to that marriage, and she turned around and told someone else that I was boring and predictable. Let her believe that narrative if it helps her sleep at night. Let her pretend that she was the one who walked away from something that wasn't working. Let her post inspirational quotes on social media about personal growth and self-love and finding your authentic truth. Let her stay trapped in a world where cheating was just a fling and systematic betrayal was merely a moment of weakness that anyone could understand and forgive. I don't live in that world anymore. That house of lies burned down completely, and I didn't just walk out of the wreckage. I built something infinitely better on the ashes of what used to be. So if you're reading this story and you find yourself in a situation similar to where I was just a few months ago, if you're second-guessing your own instincts, questioning your own sanity, and gaslighting yourself because the person you love is slowly reprogramming your understanding of reality, I want you to hear me clearly on this point. Leave. Just leave. Don't wait around hoping to catch the smoking gun that will finally prove beyond any doubt that your suspicions are justified. Don't wait to find them in bed with someone else, or discover some receipt that definitively proves their betrayal. Don't spend months or years collecting evidence like you're building a legal case that you'll need to present to a jury of your peers. Sometimes the crushing weight of your own doubt is already proof enough of what's happening. Sometimes the way someone makes you feel small, unsure of yourself, and constantly questioning your own perceptions, like you're perpetually auditioning for love that you've already earned through your commitment and devotion, is the only evidence you really need to make a decision. You deserve so much more than what you're settling for. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel confident and secure, not someone who keeps you off balance and guessing about where you stand. You deserve a partner who builds you up instead of tearing you down, someone who makes you feel like the best version of yourself instead of someone who consistently makes you feel like you're not quite enough. And walking away from a toxic situation, that's not weakness or giving up too easily. It's war. It's you fighting for your own dignity, your own self-respect, and your own right to be treated with basic human decency. And I won the moment I stopped fighting for someone who was never really fighting for me, who had already checked out of our marriage emotionally long before I discovered the physical evidence of her betrayal. This is the part of my story where I say goodbye, not just to Nicole and the twisted relationship we had built together, but to the version of myself that I was when I was with her. That man who accepted less than he deserved, who made excuses for behavior that was inexcusable, who gave everything he had to someone who gave back only manipulation and lies. That man is gone now. He's been permanently retired, and I don't miss him, not anymore. I don't miss the anxiety, the constant vigilance, the feeling like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. I don't miss the version of myself that was so desperate to make things work that I ignored my own instincts and rationalized away behavior that should have been immediate deal breakers. The man I am now, the one who sleeps peacefully, who trusts his own judgment, who has standards and boundaries and refuses to compromise them for anyone. This is who I was always meant to be. Nicole didn't destroy me when she chose to betray our marriage. She just removed the obstacles that were preventing me from becoming the person I'm supposed to be. So to anyone who needs to hear this message, your intuition is not lying to you. Your gut feelings are not paranoia or insecurity. When someone shows you who they really are through their actions, believe them the first time. Don't wait for the situation to get worse. Don't hope that things will magically improve. And don't sacrifice your own peace of mind trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You are worthy of real love, honest communication, and genuine respect. Never settle for anything less than what you know you deserve. And if someone in your life is making you question your own worth, it's time to question whether they deserve a place in your future. The best revenge against someone who has treated you poorly is not some elaborate scheme or public humiliation. The best revenge is living well, building something beautiful with your life, and never looking back with regret. The best revenge is becoming so completely happy and fulfilled that you forget they ever had the power to hurt you in the first place. That's where I am now. That's my ending. And if you're brave enough to walk away from what's destroying you, it can be your beginning too.